to mark this special occasion. We have a lineup of esteemed guests, brilliant scientists,
This is the 10th. Uh, to my, I would like to initially invite actually Dr. V. Nandakumar sir, the director of ENSES. Initially, please, sir. Now I would like to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Professor Janki Andharia. Now I would like to welcome Dr. M. Rajivan sir, our former Secretary Ministry of Earth Sciences and the Vice Chancellor of Andharia University. And I would like to welcome Dr. M. Baba sir, our former director, and who was instrumental in installing, especially developing this building also. It's also a memorable moment for us. And now I would like to proceed with the further.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call Dr. L. Sheila Nair ma'am, Scientist D and Group Head of Marine Geoscience Group, to introduce our esteemed guest, providing us with glimpse of their remarkable achievement and contribution.
Good afternoon to all of you and welcome to the Foundation Day celebration of ENCESS. It is my pleasure to introduce our chief guest of honor today, Professor Janki Andharia, who has graciously accepted our invitation to join us today for this function. As you all know, she is a highly accomplished individual in the field of social science. Professor Janki Andharia is a senior professor at the School of Disaster Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and she has over 40 years of experience in the field of community organization and social development. Her areas of work focus on gender issues, environmental concerns, democratic governance, and addressing diverse forms of marginalization and vulnerability. She is also an honorary professor at the Humanitarian and Conflict Response Institute of Manchester University, UK. She is involved in national and state level policy making work and has had a long association with grassroots organizations. She was awarded the Association of Commonwealth University Scholarship to pursue her PhD from School of Environmental Sciences, University of East Anglia, UK, in the area of gender, development and environment. Professor Andharia received an award for her outstanding contribution to education in the World Education Congress Global Awards for Excellence in Education, Leadership and Teaching on 23rd July 2015 held in Mumbai. In fact, she has played an instrumental role in laying the foundation of the School of Disaster Studies at TISS and was its dean until 2022. Before that, until 2006, she was head of the Department of Urban and Rural Community Development at TISS. She has provided leadership in the area of disaster management within TISS and also other organizations in India. In fact, she has introduced a full-fledged master's degree in the subject, and in this program is within the broad framework of social and environmental justice. Professor Andharia serves as a member of several working groups and committees of the National Disaster Management Authority of India and is also a board member of several organizations. In 2014, she was invited to the Rockefeller Foundation's residency program at the Bellagio Center, Italy. In the same year, Professor Andharia received the Best Professor in Disaster Management Award, instituted by the National Education Leadership Awards, Lokman, Mumbai. This was in recognition of the critical leadership she provided to the establishment of a multidisciplinary center for disaster management. Over the years, Professor Andharia has conducted extensive research in social science, trainings, and consultancy assignments for governments, industry, and NGOs and international agencies. She has traveled abroad to several countries to deliver special lectures, establish institutional linkages with universities, and also on research collaborations. She has published extensively and is the editor of the Springer's new book series on disaster studies and management. She also serves on the editorial boards of several international peer-reviewed journals. With this small introduction, I invite Professor Janki Andharia onto the dais to deliver the speech.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, we will have the privilege of hearing a special message from the Secretary MOES, which will be delivered by Badimela Ubendra sir. So I would like to invite him to the stage.
Hello all. I'm going to now read the message from our Secretary Sir, Dr. M. Ravichandran. The message goes like this. I'm pleased to to send this message on the occasion of the NCESS Foundation Day celebrations on 1/1/2024, which I understood is the 10th in the series. NCESS, formerly Center for Earth Science Studies, was taken over by Ministry of Earth Sciences from Government of Kerala on 1/1/2014. Realizing the need for a full-fledged institution exclusively to carry out the interdisciplinary studies on solid earth sciences and related fields and its applications. I'm happy to state that NCESS has made great strides during the last 10 years. Several state-of-the-art and laboratories facilities established at NCESS, such as National Facility for Geofluids Research Facility, Isotope Geochemistry Facility, EPMA Facility, Air Quality Monitoring Lab, Ecological Modeling Lab, Geomatics Laboratory, Cloud Physics Observations will go a long way in achieving the objectives of NCESS. I'm confident that NCESS will reach greater heights in the coming years and will emerge as a center for excellence in earth sciences and its applications, contributing to social and industrial applications, providing solutions to the contemporary scientific issues facing by the nation. I'm happy to note that the NSS is celebrating the Foundation Day in a big way. I'm sure the open house program scheduled in the forenoon is going to be a memorable event for the students who will be attending it in a big numbers. I understood this year's Founders Day lecture is being delivered by the eminent social activist Professor Janki Andharia, who is Chairperson, Center for Disasters and Development at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, in the august presence of Dr. M. Rajivan Sir, Vice Chancellor, Andharia University, former Secretary MOS, and Dr. M. Baba Sir, former Director SES. I understood Professor Andharia will be lecturing on navigating the nexus toward bridging the science policy society divide in disaster management, which is a crucial aspect in disaster management in the country. I congratulate Dr. Nandakumar for the initiative he has taken in organizing this event. My special words of appreciation for the scientists and staff of NSS who are working hard to make this event a memorable one. I regret I am unable to participate in the celebrations due to my other commitments, and I take this opportunity to wish Professor Janki Andharia, Dr. Rajivan, Dr. Baba, other distinguished invitees, scientists, and staff of NSS a happy new year. Warm regards, Dr. M. Ravichandran, Secretary to Government of India, Ministry of Earth Sciences. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. With great honor and respect, I would like to invite the Director of National Center for Earth Science Studies, Dr. V. Nandakumar, sir, for addressing the audience.
Good afternoon. Respected Dr. M. Ravichandran, Secretary MOS, Dr. M. Rajivan, Vice Chancellor, Andharia University, Bangalore, and former Secretary MOS, Dr. M. Baba, former Director SES, Professor Janki Andharia, Chairperson, Center for Disasters and Development, Jamsetji Tata School of Disaster Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Former directors of NCESS, invitees, esteemed colleagues from NCESS and MOS, directors, ladies and gentlemen who are physically present and virtually attending from other centers. First of all, a happy Foundation Day greetings to all of you. I sincerely thank all NCESS colleagues and others for your contributions to the Earth system sciences, technologies developed, and services rendered. It is a great privilege for me to be able to stand here and welcome all of you to the 10th Foundation Day of NCESS. All of you are aware, I presume, that the institute was registered as Center for Earth Science Studies, an autonomous body under the state government in 1978. Our founder director, Professor C. Karnagaram, a great visionary director of ESSO. The
took bold
board
steps to
steps
bring
to bring
all
all
facets
facets
of
of
Earth
Earth
system
system
sciences
sciences
under one
under one
umbrella,
umbrella,
namely in
namely
this
in this
great
great
institution,
institution,
SES.
SES.
Though a
Though a
state
state
government
government
establishment, the
establishment, the
institute had
institute
a
had a
reputation
reputation
of a
of a
national
national
institute
institute
over the
over the
years.
years.
During
During
SES
set
times,
times,
Dr. U.
Dr.
Baba
Baba
took
took
lots of
lots of
initiatives
initiatives
to
to
make
make
SES
SES
into a
into
central
a
government organization.
organization.
His
His
efforts
efforts
brought
brought
in
in
this
this
new
new
thinking
thinking
for
for
becoming
becoming
national.
national.
Later on
Then
in
in
2014,
2014,
under the
under the
leadership of
leadership of
Dr.
Dr.
N.P.
N.P.
Kurian
Kurian
and
and
Dr.
Dr.
Shailesh
Shailesh
Naik,
Naik,
who was
who
the
was
then
the then
Secretary
Secretary
MOS,
MOS,
renewed
renewed
efforts were
efforts were
taken up,
taken up,
and
and
SES
SES
became
became
National
National
Center for
Center for
Earth
Earth
Science
Science
Studies,
Studies,
NCESS.
NCESS.
During
During
Dr. Rajivan's
Rajivan's
tenure as
tenure as
Secretary
Secretary
MOS,
MOS,
NCESS got
NCESS got
surplus
surplus
funding
funding
to
to
establish
establish
many
many
modern
modern
analytical
analytical
facilities.
facilities.
I
I
greatly
greatly
acknowledge his
acknowledge his
efforts
efforts
and
and
express my
express my
sincere
sincere
gratitude
gratitude
for his
for his
contribution
contribution
towards
towards
building a
building a
modern
modern
NSS.
business.
The
The
progress we
progress we
made
made
over the
over the
past 10
past 10
years
years
is
is
commendable.
commendable.
NSS is
NCESS is
very
very
proud
proud
to participate in the nation building processes, utilizing the research outputs, benefiting the society and the industry. Therefore, it is our proud privilege to celebrate our 10th Foundation Day since takeover by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India. Now we have to look forward for embracing the future and the challenges that are presented to us. At NCESS, we deal with the various components of Earth systems, namely geosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, and their complex interactions. Projects of NCESS like watershed management planning, state of the beach evaluation using video beach monitoring system, and research on natural hazards like landslide, soil piping, earthquakes, coastal hazards, pollution, lightning and thunderstorms, climate change studies have a direct social implication. The investigations and inventions made in the National Facility for Fluid Inclusion Research and Raman Analysis has made significant contributions in the industrial application front. We established LAICPMS uranium-lead geochronology facility, EPMA facility for micrometer scale in situ mineral chemical analysis, and MCICPMS to measure the isotopic ratios of elements used in radiogenic isotopic and stable isotopic studies. SES also initiated the Indo-Antarctica correlation studies. Established Antarctic Broadband Seismological Observatory and Seismometer Network in Kerala, Karnataka, and Maharashtra states to study India-Antarctic separation and to decipher the lithological structure. Set up 3 critical zone observatories in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Established hydrological monitoring stations in selected rivers of Western Ghats for tracing out the impact of climate change. Decoded the late quaternary evolution of coastal wetlands like Astamadi Lake, Shasangoda Lake, Paraur Lake, Velayani Lake, etc. 2 spring monitoring stations were established, one in Varkala, Kerala, and other in Bethalgadi in Karnataka. Coordinated the estimation of submarine groundwater discharge along east and west coasts of India. Using stable isotope oxygen and hydrogen, decoded moisture source of rainfalls. Established high altitude cloud physics observatory at Rajamalai, Munnar for studying monsoon clouds and rainfall. As part of Digital India e-governance initiatives,
NCESS is one of the premier institutes under the MOES to implement e-office and online payment services. In the service sector, we are catering to the preparation of coastal zone management plan maps of the state of Kerala, which is getting completed and has taken up new assignment to prepare the CCW maps of Goa state. As we celebrate this momentous occasion, I would like to express my gratitude to the entire NCESS community for their hard work, passion, and innovation. Our collective efforts have not only elevated NCESS to new heights, but also have contributed to advancement of earth science on a national and global scale. I once again welcome all of you for the 10th Foundation Day celebrations. My special welcome to Professor Janki Andharia of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Dr. M. Rajivan, former Secretary MOES, and Dr. M. Baba for having accepted our invitation to be part of the Foundation 10th Foundation Day celebrations. I also congratulated Dr. Anup and his team for immaculate arrangements for the conduct of the 10th Foundation Day celebrations. I wish you a happy new year and thank you for all.
Thank you.
I have one more assignment. As instructed by the Secretary MOES and with your kind permission, I am formally releasing a video, short video, made recently on the activities of NCESS. So this actually was prepared based on HMOES, means Minister's Directive. So far we have been keeping it without releasing it, and now I got a clearance from the Secretary to release it today on the Foundation Day. So I think we can witness it and then move to the next program. Is it okay? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Earth, Mother Earth, Matrubhumi, our only home in the vast cosmos, holds all our histories and cherished memories. Despite falling in love with its diverse landscapes, the intricate systems governing our lives remain largely unknown beyond our immediate needs. Welcome to the National Center for Earth Science Studies, NCESS, a premier R&D center under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, where our own Earth, Mother Earth, Matrubhumi, our only home in the vast cosmos, holds all our histories and cherished memories. Despite falling in love with its diverse landscapes, the intricate systems governing our lives remain largely unknown beyond our immediate needs. Welcome to the National Center for Earth Science Studies, NCESS, a premier R&D center under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, where dedicated minds explore from the ocean's depths to towering mountain peaks, guided by the motto, committed to our Earth, our future. Founded in 1978 as SES under the visionary Professor Karunakaran, NCESS excels in understanding Earth's internal and surface processes, such as tectonics, evolution, and geodynamics manifest in its interiors. shaping a holistic view of our planet. In response to this, NCESS has articulated its vision to excel the solid Earth research and unravel the Earth's mysteries. Accordingly, NCESS has established state-of-the-art facilities, including analytical facilities like an isotope geochemistry facility, EPMA, SEM, XRF, thin section labs, etc. Geophysical facilities employing advanced instruments, including the establishment of seismological observatories across the Indian subcontinent and the South Pole, namely Antarctica. Utilization of GPR, electrical resistivity, gravity and magnetic instruments, and development and incorporation of advanced methodologies to unravel the concealed internal structure, tectonics and geodynamics of the Earth. Contributions encompass unraveling the tectonic history and evolution of the Western Ghats, shear zones, cratons, mobile belts, crustal rheology, and elucidating the enigma behind the world's largest geoid anomaly, that is, the Indian Ocean geoid lobe. This pioneering research also aims to address geohazards spanning from landslides to earthquakes and aids in the development of alert systems. This research significantly contributes to enhancing preparedness, resilience, and mitigation strategies, fostering a safer environment. Further, the Institute is well equipped for comprehensive studies, contributing significantly to landslide hazard assessment and societal safety. NCESS pioneers cutting-edge technology, including a patented paleofluids laboratory for oil detection and quality estimation in failed wells. This breakthrough has far-reaching implications for the global industry. Integrating fluid inclusion research data into petroleum system modeling enhances predictions of hydrocarbon generation and expulsion in oil-rich basins. NCESS's laser Raman spectroscopic techniques uniquely identify aromatic hydrocarbon species in oil inclusions, making an international first. Recognizing the importance of environmentally inclusive development, NCESS establishes critical zone observatories in Attapadi, Munnar and Aduthurai, serving as global test beds for studying terrestrial ecosystems responses to natural and forced changes. Hydrological monitoring stations in rivers to study changes due to climate and land surface variations. Flood modeling aids in distinguishing natural and man-made contributions to hazards. NCESS monitors non-conventional water sources, studying springs, thermal water for sustainable use, and investigates submarine groundwater discharge. NCESS has established the Central Chemical Laboratory dedicated to supporting professionals in the fundamental chemical analysis for Earth System Sciences research. The lab specializes in pollution studies, chemical spatiation, and pesticide dynamics, addressing societal concern. Additionally, expanding facilities to assess water resource suitability for drinking, irrigation, and industrial purposes. India boasts a long coastline spanning about 7,500 kilometers with diverse coastal processes. Thus, NCESS pioneers an efficient video beach monitoring system, providing crucial data for coastal management, even in adverse conditions, and to understand the coastal dynamics. From high-altitude plant observatories to atmospheric research, NCESS delves into studies on atmospheric clouds, thunderstorms, lightning, and regional climate over the Western Ghats. These efforts aim to enhance weather forecasting capabilities and understanding of severe weather processes in the Western Ghats. The Central Geomatics Lab plays a pivotal role in mapping using GIS software and data creation. Furthermore, NCESS spearheaded the establishment of the National Geoscience Data Center for archiving Earth science data. With one of the largest Earth science libraries, it embraces the Digital India Initiative and e-office implementation, setting new standards for research and governance. Under visionary minds since 1978, NCESS thrives as a premier institute committed to Earth and our future. Thanks to tireless efforts, you and I can go about our business uncovering the mysteries of our world. Our Earth is for its people, and these people are for our Earth. The National Center for Earth Science Studies, a beacon of knowledge and sustainability.
Now, with great honor and respect, I would like to invite Dr. M. Rajivan, the Vice Chancellor of Atria University, Bangalore, and the former Secretary of Ministry of Earth Science, to address the audience for shedding the light on the vision and future of the institute.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, all of you. Professor Janki Andharia from Tata Institute, Kumar, Dr. Baba, colleagues from Nexus. I'm extremely happy to be here on the 10th Foundation Day. I remember a secretary on these Foundation Day celebrations physically, and when COVID came on online. And first of all, congratulations for this Foundation Day and then Foundation Day. And also, I wish you all of you, very happy New Year. And as Dr. Nandakumar was saying that this institute has a lot of stake. The institute has been doing extremely well for last 10 years, especially after taking over by Ministry of Earth Sciences. We have been funding them a lot and setting up labs, etc. And but still, if you ask me a question, are you really satisfied with the performance of NCESS? I will say no. Still, we have a lot of hope for the NCESS to grow in terms of high quality research. And so it's very important to know that to note that Andharia is here, and I should really congratulate Dr. Nandakumar inviting such a wonderful person, wonderful personality from Tata Institute. She has been working in social science for many years. And as a scientist, we also need, especially the institute like NCESS, should really work for societal problems. The institute was set up by Kerala government last time back only to solve the issues, societal issues of Kerala state. And now Ministry has taken over, so the scope is now enlarged. And we need to really get involved in a lot of social research related to social problems. Plenty and social gives a lot of plenty of problems which we can address and we should really address. High quality research paper should come. One of the couple of points which I would like to highlight that which I noted during my service as secretary as well as last 2 years when I am visiting here is first of all this institute should the scientist institute should have more and more collaborations. You cannot work with do science in silos. The institute have have good capability, a good number of good scientists are there in the staff, but these scientists should really collaborate. First of all, with national, other national authorities, and also abroad. There are a lot of scope, there are a lot of opportunities. Ministry can take care of that kind of issues and solve these kind of infrastructure problems, etc. But you need really collaborate. Collaboration will bring you a lot of good ideas, innovative ideas, so that we can improve your science and also bring your research paper in a high quality journals to make your credibility as well as visibility. Finally speaking, this institute is really doing well, but still, if you really take a national importance as well as international importance, it has to improve a lot so that its credibility and visibility improves. And second thing we can also is a simple thing we can do is invite every month we will export scientists from abroad or from India to come and talk to these people, stay there for 1 week, talk to the scientists, talk to the students, and spend some time. So more vibrancy in terms of research and also science should be there. That's what my personal feeling. I'm very sure that Dr. Andhakumar will take care of these issues and will help you to do that things. And wish you all the best. And in terms of research, you don't worry about number of papers being published and the impact factors, everything. In my perception, I have a term called useful research. I never published a high quality paper in science or nature. I'm not worried also. But I published many useful research papers, which can be used immediately by society in terms of data development, in terms of prediction tools, etc. So it's not necessary that you should crack a big problem and solve a kind of breakthrough research and publish in Nature or Science. You can always do useful research so that people can make use of it. Wish you all the best. Do well.
Thank you, sir. Now, with great honor and respect, let me invite Dr. M. Baba, former Director of SES, to take us on a reflective journey, sharing insight into the remarkable journey of our institute over past decades.
Okay. So first of all, I want to wish you all a happy new year. I really don't know what to speak because this is the first foundation day I am attending after ESSO-NCESS was taken over by Ministry of Sciences. Can you hear? Is there any problem with the phone? Okay, so I'm very happy to see that some of my old colleagues with whom I worked and also some people whom I recruited towards the end of my career here. They are all here. I'm very happy to see them. And most important is that a lot of young people are here. When I was retiring in 19, that is wrong, 2010, the average age was about 45, 50 of CESS. Now I find that the average should be around 30. So that shows the dynamism and energy which is available in the institution. Yeah, when there was discussion about taking over, I will take some 15 minutes. There was a committee by our former secretary, Dr. Goyal, and I happened to be with that. At that time, there was a discussion.
What is the name of the institution? I suggested
it should be ESSO-NCESS.
you know in Malayalam
or something. My I remember when I was a member of the Atapari
and society.
I was
Secretary of Atapadi in Parliament.
that heart that was there for 50 years. And for the development
of Atapadi area, tribal area.
when I was
I was one of the executive committee. Every 3 months we used to have a meeting with some good people from the committee.
we used to go around to the colonies, the tribal colonies, and ask
the chairman asked,
what is the Namma hearts.
my heart. So that was expected. So the similar about says. So I think Nandkumar wanted me to tell you
the
the journey of ESSO-NCESS
towards
becoming the national center.
It was
It was
established
in 78, as you were told.
The visionary was
Was
invited
invited by the state government to the institute.
and
You know, he recruited me
the first year,
1978.
and I was very excited.
Scientist B, but within 1 or 2 years, I became scientist C and then upwards.
There was
A lot of in the formative years of this institution.
the idea was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That was formulated by the meaning is very
Ground.
Earth
Yes,
is
one family.
and
This is one of the first earth science institutions in the country. You know,
that
that I think in north some department of earth science was there. That was basically a geological institute, geological department.
but
When
somewhere in
north, I don't remember the exact some university, NCER is not a, it is NCER, National Geographical Consortium. But Earth Science, the name Earth Science was coined by Professor Karnakaran, and that was much before the Earth Science Ministry was formed. He was a visionary. He was a good diver, not diver. So he wanted to do a lot of research in marine geology. So what is happening down in the oceans. That was his idea. That he wanted to contribute to that, and then unfortunately, uh, some recruitments were made, and I don't want to go into the story of recruitments, but somehow that did not happen. Because marine geology is a very small subject of this institute. Oceanography was there. And under Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, his vision was to use the solid earth, the water, and the atmosphere in solving the problems together. What actually happened in SES is that these three departments are made, and they worked in isolation, never came together. Actually, if I look back, that was one of the major mistakes done at that time. Each department was different, and many of the geological problems and the formation of Earth or the drifting of the continents or anything, so are related to water and atmosphere. There is a linkage between that. And the formation of minerals or whatever it is, here for everything, water and atmosphere is an important parameter. So he wanted to bring all these things together, and a water scientist, a geologist, and atmospheric scientist should sit together and solve the problem. This was CST of that time under the geology. So the Department of Science and Technology wanted to do that, but no country this happened. Even if it did not happen. So that's one part of the story. There are a lot of details about that when we go into that. So these three became independent, and independent departments, they started doing their own research. I think still that is continuing. Even now it is continuing after 25 years of formation of SES. So the concept should not be dropped in the research of earth sciences. That is one thing. Then our Gupta, a great scientist, a seismologist, he brought geophysics here. And that has helped SES in many ways. We became one of the top around the consultants in the field of seismology. Then came Dr. from GSI. He was a great geologist. He wanted to put these people together into the concept of together and to take the project which are formulated by the Department of Science and Technology. And he tried by taking that, this institutions will finally go to EST. And there were discussions by Dr. Ramakrishnan at that time. That was way back in late 80s. Then came so he made a contribution in the projects formulated under the Department of Science and Technology programs, and we had some excellent institutes who produced a lot of work on that. Then came the he came from the ONGC with a lot of experience in quaternary geology. Our Dr. Prasad is a product. He introduced that, and we have done a lot of work and good publications came under their leadership, and that was the story. Then came my son,
I was
I
here
was
for
here
20
for 20 years in that chair.
Subrata Sinha. Subrata
Subrata
Sinha,
Sinha, Dr. Subrata Sinha from
Bengal,
Bengal, he came here.
but his
But
vision was totally different. Means at that
at
time,
that time,
government was
government was
going for
going
the
for
Janki
Janki means people's plan program.
So he
So he
wanted the
wanted
entire
India
geology,
his utmost scientists to join this group and go to the people, tell them how to create water, how to control rainwater, this type of things.
You
Yeah.
understand? So that
So
is
that
the
is the type of work, and the whole thing was shifted. The research R&D was shifted to popular science. Yeah, and that was mapping. That became a big problem, and I must say that that actually the CESS was derived. I will use that. The original work which was going on in this institution and the able leadership of many good scientists, very good reputed scientists, derived at the time.
then came
Then
my I
I
wanted
want
to
to bring this back,
bring
this back to the original condition,
and I
and
said
uh,
basic
basic
research
research
and
and social constitutions.
these two
These two
things
things
go
go
parallel.
hand,
And
and
that
that
created
created
a
a
lot
lot
of
of impact. And I
I
don't
want to
want to
praise
praise
myself,
myself, but
one
one
of
of
the
the
things I
things
want
I want to tell you at this moment, I'll mention that in my notes.
one of
One
the
of the
things I
things I want to tell.
during those
During those
12 years, there were
there
two
were two
attempts,
attempts,
three
three
attempts
attempts
by
by
Ministry of
Ministry of Earth Sciences to take over. Yes.
First
First
came
came Dr.
Nathanayagan.
Nathanayagan.
He was
He
a
was a
secretary
CPO,
of
DOD,
DOD,
Department of Ocean Development.
He
He
came here and
came
stationed here
stationed
a
here a few days and he discussed with all the scientists how to take out this institution, Department of Ocean Development.
But
But
finally,
due to some reasons within that Department of Ocean Development, it did not happen.
then
Then
our Dr. Goel
Boyle
came as
came
secretary
after
after MOES,
MOES,
and
and
he
he
came
came
here
here a few times
to take
to take
over.
this institution.
But he
But
told
he
me
told
that
that
I can
this will,
I have
I
a
have
big elephant,
a
that is IMD, Meteorological Department,
department
trying to
trying to
tackle
tackle
that,
that
to
to
bring under
bring
the Ministry of
Ministry of Earth
Science.
Sciences.
So,
So
along with
along with
that,
that, the CESS should go.
like
Like he was telling.
so we
So we
gave him
gave
more.
more support.
During
During
that
that
period,
period,
one
one
very
very
interesting thing
interesting thing
happened.
happened.
You
You
all
should
know,
know,
because you are
because you
very
are very
scientific, you
you
have
have
many
many years to go, you should know the history of this center.
all of a
All
sudden from Parliament
Parliament
and
and Science
committee,
Economic Committees.
information that that secretary of
Secretary of
that steering
State
committee calls
called
me and
me
says
and
that
says that
our
our
team is
team is
coming
coming
and
and visiting
MPs,
MPs,
20
20.
MPs. So
So
we were
we were
not
not
having
having
enough
enough
money at
money.
that time to pay salaries. That was another situation. Still, we managed to give a car each to each MP, and they were accommodated. And the present your library hall was vacated, and we made a conference room and all that. And we brought chairs, the royal chairs from the Kanakuni Palace, and put all of them around, and all these people. Very interestingly, in the final climax, you should understand. I will tell you. And presentations were made, our leading scientists they made very good presentations, and they were so happy. And our one MP from Assam said that we want the branch of this institution immediately in Assam. And from Nagaland, from Kashmir, everyone wanted a branch of this institution. Discussions went on, and finally, the chairman asked, what is your budget? I said, some 1 crore or 2 crores. Where do you get it? Which department is and the central government is giving you that money? I said that in central government we get some small peanut projects. And our funding is coming from the state. State government? You are under the state government? Like that he started. Then he looked at his secretary, then why we are here? Parliamentary committee visits the institutions of central government only, not state government. You understand? They came with the agenda for three institutions. One is ISRO, second is RRL, what is the new name? NIST, and then CESS. So they first came to CESS, you understand? And then they were finally, it was a mistake made by the parliamentary committee. They visited CESS. So I want to tell you this just because the institution was very popular all over the country at that time. We have programs in Uttarkashi, we had programs in Bhuj, we had programs in Kadapa, and we had programs in Gujarat, then we had programs in Maharashtra at that time as a state government institution. Please remember this. So this was the popularity, and not only this, some consultancy programs, lot of consultancy programs, because consultancy we promoted at that time because the state government was giving only half of the salary. We have 50 scientists at that time and a lot of students. Only half salary was given by the state government. Half salary I had to go around the country and pay for payment of salaries. A small saving of 5 crores, I think, from that is still there. Some corpus fund. That corpus fund was generated at that time. It is still lying in the bank. Even now it is there. Yes. So this is how we managed. So the institution was very popular at that time. That is why finally, when Dr. Shailesh Naik took over as the secretary of the institute, so Shailesh was a regular visitor to this institute. He was in the governing council, and as a scientist, we had a lot of collaborative programs with the SAC, NGRI, and all these institutions at that time. And he came that, Baba, this is the time I want to take this institute. So that process started during my last last year, 2010, and it took a few years with a lot of effort, a lot of attempts to sabotage that also from the central government, from inside, from outside. All these things happened, and finally the central money is there now. Now people have to work. I fully agree with Rajiv sir that he told that we should have more collaboration. We should have more collaboration. At that time we tried a lot. There were some good collaborations, but I don't know on the present condition. But I know that there is some very good research going on in this institute. Very good. I regularly get the annual report and I see that something is going on. Very interesting papers are being published. And as it is said, but one part is required when you are in a state. That happens to any institution, whether it is a national oceanography in Goa or NGRI in Hyderabad. They take up work up that area also, and they help the local governments in solving some of the problems. I remember during the 1995 to 2005 period, there were a lot of crowds, and we had to use the security to stop the vehicles because they used to come. Myself, Padmana, and we were trying to accommodate all the different people who come for suggestions. There was a time when tsunami took place. Nobody knew what is a tsunami and all. So at that time, I was advising the government what to do and all those things. And a tsunami was coming. Second announcement of tsunami by India Meteorological was not the first one. First one, of course. I became popular. I became unpopular also. That is a history. I am not going to tell that. But the second time again, IMD announced. Chennai office announced that a second tsunami is coming. I immediately told the government, the concerned officials in the government, that second tsunami is coming, so we have to make preparations. So at 1 o'clock in the night, Chief Minister of Kerala is calling me, Baba, can you come here? We are all here, we are discussing what to do. So when I went there, all the secretaries and police and everybody is sitting around what to do. So the police said that we have asked all the vessels in the ocean to come back immediately, come to the land. And I said that is the the worst thing which can happen. During a tsunami, all the vessels should remain in the sea. They should not come back to the shore. During a cyclone, they should come. I told then immediately the chief minister said that immediately make the announcement. And then on that night, the entire coast area was evacuated, and some 2 heart patients died also in that whole process. So all the blame came on me. That is it, because I only. So like that. Anyway, these are all stories you should know. There is a lot of things happened to come to this level. So that is what I am telling. So I just want to stop here. I told that Dr. Nandamar when he called me that you cannot stop me because this is ESSO, NCESS. So that is why. So only the last point, I just want to add to what Dr. Anjivan said. Collaboration is very, very important. First, you start the collaboration within yourself, here within the institute. Look at that. What Dr. Rashmi is there? Oh, you are here. Yes. Rashmi is doing some good work. This Shilana is doing some good work, and many geologists are doing very good. Thompson is here. Today he is not here. Yeah, okay. So they're all, and of course, under you people are all already doing some excellent work here. Just sometimes talk to these people. Geologists, I am asking you to talk to this group, talk to Rashmi, where we can put a small project we can start together. So this is the first collaboration. Then you simultaneously go for the national and international. I know that there are some groups who are working together, but some more for better visualization and visibility, it is necessary that we should work with the national and global institutions. That's very important. This is the only thing I wanted to say. I am sorry that I have extended my talk in more than the 10 minutes given to me. So wish you all good luck. And I am staying very nearby. Every day I am watching this institution. So I want to see this institution flourish in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
After knowing that they came to the wrong place, why did you not ask money for all your expenses from the parliamentary government?
Sure, we did not ask any money. We did not ask any money from the water.
He's asking why.
Why you
should have asked because you paid for them. That's what he's saying. Why did you
that wisdom did not work.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would really like to invite Professor Janki Andharia to take the stage and enlighten us with her Foundation Day lecture on the topic Navigating the Nexus toward Bridging the Science Policy Society Dividing Disaster Management.
I can change slides from there?
Yeah.
Which way do I point this? That one. Point where?
You can point anywhere. അത് ഓക്കെ
So good afternoon, everybody. After So that was absolutely wonderful introduction and also understanding the history from one of the director's lenses. It's always interesting to listen to stories, especially because as scientists we tend to be so focused on our work, but we also know that there's a lot that's going on, behind the scenes and so on. So stories are very interesting, and thank you for that story. Of course, it raises many more questions, and I also wonder if you got all the directors on one platform, whether they would have the same story and the same version to tell. So that's another sort of area of work. So thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. I think it's a bold step on NCESS's part to invite a social scientist who knows very little about everything that you do. Definitely, I don't know the nitty-gritties and the scientific details of what you do, but I do know that there is a lot that all of us as scientists, whether we are social scientists or natural scientists, there is a lot that we need to do to make this world a better place. So that's really my starting point, and one of the reasons why I sort of come here, and one of the reasons why I have worked in this domain of making science relevant to people and the community is something that I'm passionate about. So I heard with great interest that um, one of the directors can feel that when you get involved in people's planning, and that actually derails our scientific agenda. So yeah, I mean that's also a perspective. So how do you sort of bring in the right kind of a balance, the right kind of a mix is definitely a challenge for all of us and will continue to be so. Um, I'm going to sort of very quickly give you an overview. It's not changing. If you can just change it. Next slide, please. While he fixes it, I just want to, and I'm going to keep track of time because I don't want to be apologetic about overshooting my time. I was given 45 minutes. Do I still have 45 minutes or do we have less time? Sorry about that. I know all of you have had a very heavy lunch. And in fact, I was told that the box was enough for 2 people. So if you've eaten your full packet, I know you're sleepy and would rather go to sleep rather than be here. But what to do? I think you're all here captive. So, uh, it's like my opportunity to reach out to you in my own way. And I'm going to use that opportunity. But yes, if we want to stop at any time, that's fine by me because I'm a teacher at heart. Okay. So it's not like I'm wanting to lecture, but so I think we can stop, we can ask questions or have a discussion if need be. Okay, so very broadly speaking, this is the structure of the presentation. I'm going to start with what is the vision of disaster management, uh, especially in India. So in the context of rising disasters, what is the vision that we have? And what is the significance of risk-informed planning? So I'm glad that planning was mentioned, people's plan was mentioned. But risk-informed planning is a new area which is emerging, and I think many of us are engaged in advocacy with policymakers to say that you cannot just build buildings anywhere, you can't just sort of go ahead and build a mall anywhere without looking at the contours, without looking at how you are adding to risks in a given geography. So I'm going to be sort of talking a little bit about that. And the next issue that I'm going to broadly touch upon is development and how that contributes to disaster risks. The form, the nature of development actually contributes to disaster risks. and we need to be cognizant of it. Disasters are not just natural hazards. It is the impact of natural hazards that interfaces with communities, with people, with the environment, causes destruction and damage to property, and that's when a hazard, a natural hazard, becomes a disaster. So when we say disasters are on the rise, there's something that's happening where we are building maybe on harm's way, and that is why there's more devastation, etc. We also want to sort of focus on how development, disasters, and poverty and vulnerability are deeply interconnected. So, I, coming from social sciences, I am going to talk about people and society. We all know that the world is on the course of sixth mass extinction. I think as an Earth Science Institute, I don't need to belabor that point, but I will briefly sort of talk about that, which actually pushes us to really make a strong case for science, policy, and society interface. And we need to make a strong case for disaster-proofing communities, especially the poor. And science for sustainability is what we really need to talk about. So why is there a problem? Why is there a disconnect between science, policy, and society? We talk a little bit about examples and what are the barriers and challenges in practice. I wasn't very clear about the audience of this particular talk, but I see that there are a lot of young scientists. So it will be interesting for us to share a little bit of the experiences that maybe the senior colleagues, in fact, I think some of the examples given or shared, about the history and development of the institution tells us about the nature of sort of politics that we as scientists have to encounter. And finally, how exactly do we navigate this whole nexus between science policy? So this is broadly what I'm going to do. It is a plateful, but I'm going to probably go fast and faster than sort of usual. Okay, so very quickly, this is the vision of disaster management. And this is what you will find in the NDMA documents. The National Disaster Management Authority talks about holistic, proactive, multi-disaster and technology-driven strategy for disaster management. And we need to instill a culture of prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and also work on response. We are doing a lot on response, but we are not doing enough with regard to mitigation and prevention. Despite knowing things, we don't necessarily act on it, work on it, and so on. So we have started congratulating ourselves with regard to how quick the response was, how good the response was, but why were we not able to prevent? Is a question we need to ask. It's a very hard question that we need to ask because this is what we have said is our vision. But we are still all the time talking about how NDRF, the disaster response force, came and saved people, rescued, etc., etc. But why did the disaster occur in the first place? Where did we go wrong? Right? So these are questions we need to sort of. Now, in all of this, we're talking about center staging the community, and we also need to sort of look at the collective efforts of not just government institutions, but also of civil society organizations and NGOs. This is something that we are aspiring. So how would we do that? So we also talk about historical shifts that have taken place from relief-centric, response-centric, reactive approach to integrated approaches. We want to have an integrated approach, and that integration really means that we have to break our silos. It really means we have to collaborate. It really means that different departments and different institutions need to work together. So efforts that aim to conserve development gains as also minimize losses to lives, livelihood and property. So every time a disaster occurs, whatever progress we have made with regard to development, there's a setback. Yeah? So there are 2 steps, 3 steps back, and then we have to rebuild, reconstruct. So development funds are diverted very often to responding to disasters. So therefore, risk-informed planning is extremely important, and we're not talking enough about risk-informed planning. That by building something, if you go to, I read in papers that your techno park was flooded. I also read, I mean, periodically you have in Kochi, the area around Lulu Mall gets flooded, which was earlier not flooded. Why does that happen? Is there not enough scientific studies done? Did we not look at the contours? Did we not really look at, in the city that I come from, we have built an entire township called New Parade in a wetland. Where is science here? I mean, it's just illogical to do that. And now you also have Reliance trying to acquire land of salt pans. They also want to destroy mangroves and again build townships. So this whole builder lobby, the way it works, is something that needs to be challenged, needs to sort of, I think enough number of scientists need to stand up and say that this is what's going on is not right. You also have another sort of project that's coming up, 75,000 crores, one of the pet projects of Niti Aayog in the Great Nicobar Island. We are building a huge township there. We are building a huge container terminal, a port, which will be of international. And this region is seismically extremely active. You have certified earthquakes every year, recorded ones. So, I mean, does that make logical sense to invest this volume of money into a region which is seismically active? And when we talk to the bureaucrats, I mean, people, we have, I don't know if you know about CDRI, there is a coalition of disaster risk resilient infrastructure that we have, as India, as a country, has set up. And there are member countries that have joined the coalition, and we are promoting risk resilient infrastructure. So I spoke to them. I said, we are leaders in all of this, but what about what's happening in Great Nicobar? And their answer really is that, you know, California is on a fault line. They don't stop building. So, well, people build on fault lines. Is that really a valid sort of argument? Is a question we have to think about. There's a lot being written about it, and maybe those of you who are interested in current affairs should definitely read up about what's going on in Great Nicobar, because there's going to be huge destruction of the environment in that area. There are certain species that are endemic. Okay, this I'm going to go over very quickly, that despite the vision, disasters have increased in India and also globally. So we know this data is from IMPACT, which is Center for Research in Epidemiology of Disasters in Belgium. They keep a global database. Am I pressing something wrong for that? Okay. All right, this is yet another slide which tells you that, you know, disaster impacts since 2000, the extensive damage that is being caused, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. So just to give us a sense that there is a rise in disasters. Floods and storms account for 70% of all disasters. So that's some more data. Now, globally, there is a report called World Risk Report, which actually tells us which are the most disaster-prone areas across the globe. So there is a lot of data, information, there's a huge database, so there's a lot that we already know. Now, my argument is that disasters and development have a deep linkage, and they are not to be seen as separate. Okay, and this is something that we are aware of, that how does development contribute to disaster risk? So the mall was a good, an example. I'm talking about the Nicobar, Great Nicobar Island. Another example. There are a number of, shall I say, compelling reasons why we want to build a port there, because there's the whole geopolitical issue of South China Sea. So, well, we want to keep our presence in the islands and a stronger presence, but is that the best place is a million-dollar question. Okay, so we know that there's a multi-hazard context. It's not just one disaster we're talking about. We're talking about a whole range of disasters which are magnified by climate change. And vulnerability has increased because of factors like inappropriate land use, unplanned urbanization. We have a huge population to deal with. So there are all these factors which create its own challenges. All right, so these are things, these relationships are well established by articles, by people working on it, by research, and so on. Uh, Now, this is the development that I'm talking about. The nature and form of development that we are pursuing is largely extractive and oriented towards profit. And it is because of this profit orientation that we are willing to compromise on all our resources. We are willing that, okay, another 5 years, 10 years, well, an entire place can be submerged, but does it matter? Today we are making money, so let's sort of go for it. And I think that's something that we really need to look at. I think these are things that I'm sure you are aware of, so I don't need to dwell on it. Okay, so since you come from, I thought this was a useful thing. Since you talk about, why is this box coming? Is a question they are asking. Hello? Can we get rid of the box? Yeah, thank you. So we have moved from the Holocene to the Anthropocene, and so what works is, go to the next slide. So I think that pushes me to also move forward. Okay, so there's a world out of balance, and yes, I think we are moving very rapidly towards what we call the sixth mass extinction. Right? Everybody is aware of Anthropocene and also sixth mass extinction that is on the anvil. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm sure you've heard of it if you've studied geology. Geologists study about this, right? Okay. Yes or no? All right. So there's habitat destruction of a certain kind, increased levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, nuclear weapons tests that we have done actually is something that's going to leave like a huge mark on the planet. And we have doubled the nitrogen and phosphorus in our soils in the past century with our fertilizer use, ocean acidification, wide-scale natural resources extraction. All of this is creating, a case for sixth mass extinction to be accelerated. So we have had the largest impact on the nitrogen cycle in 2.5 million years. So that's how much. We have put so much plastic in our waterways and oceans that microplastics now are everywhere. I don't know if you read this, but mother's breast milk also has plastic. This is what they have found. There's that much of plastic we have put in our, so what we are eating as fruits, vegetables, fish, meat, there are microplastics that are just about everywhere. So we've left a permanent marker in sediment and glacial ice with airborne particulates such as black carbon from fossil fuel burning. So fossil fuel burning, I think COP28, there is a lot that has been discussed. If you follow, I don't know again whether you're following COP28, because I think institutions like these, scientific institutions really need to follow these global debates to see what is the relevance of our science to anybody. Because science is going in one direction, world is going in another direction, couldn't care less. So that science has really very little meaning if we are not going to follow the sort of information database, the evidence that science is throwing up. So in this state of affairs, formulating adequate responses to pressing socio-ecological challenges requires effective and legitimate knowledge production and use. What kind of knowledge are we producing and of what use and relevance? So thank you, Dr. Rajivan, for bringing out that point of what is the relevance and use of that knowledge that you're producing. To say that I published in 5 journals with a certain impact factor, yes, that's good. But at the end of the day, are we making the world a better place is the question. Collectively, that's our responsibility, especially as people who are educated, who understand what's going on. Or are we going to have a limited view and we're going to say, well, my job and my promotion and so on. And it is here that we need to make a stronger case for science policy society interface. Okay, so what is the impact of all of these disasters and climate change on society? What climate change really means is all of this: global warming, widespread hunger, sea level rise, floods, decreased access to clean drinking water, mass displacement, increased conflict over natural resources, insect outbreaks, you have heat, death. I think all of these are sort of what, when we just use the word climate change, I'm feeling hot, climate change. It's not as simple as that. Yeah, one needs to understand the whole process of what climate change really means, and within that, who is going to be impacted the most? What is its impact on society in general? But who will be impacted the most by all these disasters and climate change, which is the poor, and that we cannot forget. The gap between the rich and the poor in India has increased. Although the middle classes has become larger, the gap between the richest and the poorest has increased manifold in the last 15-20 years. The government doesn't want us to know about this, so there's no data that, and anyone who talks about it is to be shut down. So science for poverty alleviation and vulnerability reduction, or should science be for profit making? I mean, I know that there are institutions which have been doing work like, when you have institutions, when you identify institutions to do a certain kind of work, research institutions, some of them are partially government funded, partially private, and the push to raise funds. Very often you do things which are not necessarily scientific. You take money for, let's say, somebody comes to you. I've heard these stories also, that somebody comes to you to say to an institution saying, please do this for us. Let's say drawing the CRZ lines. And well, we will give you so much money, just push it by 2 feet, 3 feet. And you're willing to do it. Why? Because yes, my institution needs to survive. And this is the kind of sort of credibility that I'm talking about. That it's very important for us to really be aware that is our science for vulnerability reduction? Is it for sustaining ourselves as a planet? Or is our science for making money and profit? I've also raised this question very often. The National Disaster Management Authority, when they were bringing out, the NDMA was invited when the plans were being made, during the planning process, and there were meetings to which we were invited. And I've always asked this question to secretaries: why is it that all our GIS data is not? NRSA collects a lot of data. It's very difficult to get this data for a common person. Why so? The money that who spends, it is not one entity's money. It's not their data. Who's the money used for satellites? Where does it come from? It's not one department. It comes from taxpayers' money, right? Why is it that data becomes so difficult to access? I mean, I can understand when there are security reasons for border districts and so on. But you ask for data, it's very difficult. And I have discussed this with ISRO, NRSA. They say, no, Bhuvan, this, that. And I said, I will sit with you and you have to go over how Bhuvan's data doesn't necessarily come so easily. So it's okay to make statements, but these are questions and we have to keep asking these questions. That why is it that data collected through taxpayers' money, through the exchequer, becomes the private property of one department or one ministry? No, it can't be. How will science progress unless you, in fact, which is this Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, they have had a very robust collaboration with Institute, this is University of Twente, ITC, Netherlands. And they were teaching them community-based GIS. Now, I want to know how many of you would even say that, yes, I'm willing to work on a project around community-based GIS. So the agenda is that a fisherman or a local knowledge center, a local village, a local panchayat should be able to access GIS data for planning purposes. Why is it not available and why is it, I mean, I've struggled in my department. By the way, we have a GIS lab. We are the first social science institute, very proud to say that we have a GIS lab. And when I tell faculty there that you should work on community-based GIS, they say, no, this is high science. Illiterate people can't understand. You need to do BTech, MTech, only then you can do GIS. No, that's not true. And there are NGOs that have done this kind of work, so I'm aware that this is possible. But are we willing to do that? So science for people, science for society is absolutely essential. Or are we going to keep talking about science for profiteering or filling the coffers of certain entities? Now, just you can have a quick read of this that because of disasters, on an average, 24 million people are pushed into poverty and many millions are forced to leave their homes. So if vulnerable countries are in constant struggle to rebuild and recover after catastrophic events, we will never achieve the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So the goal that we are setting for ourselves, we've had SDGs. You all know about SDGs? Sustainable Development Goals, yes. Because all institutions now have to also report on how your work is contributing to SDGs. So it's important for us to recognize this. So are we in a position to disaster-proof the poor? Is a question we need to ask. We cannot say that my job is only to do research. There's this very classic sort of when Uttarakhand disaster occurred. You're aware of 2018 cloud burst in Uttarakhand, huge devastation and landslides and all of that. The person who was heading the Met department, he said, my job is to give the warning. I mean, I just indicate that there'll be heavy to very heavy rain, and I have done that. But what does heavy to very heavy rain mean? No one really knew. It's monsoon, it's raining, so yeah. So the communication that we make is as important as just our science. We can't say that, well, we have data, we have communicated, but has it been understood? Is it actionable? Is the communication actionable? So poverty plays a big role in keeping people vulnerable to disasters, and in the same fashion, disasters keep the poor in poverty by consistently wiping out the few resources that they have. So reducing vulnerability and building resilience should be an important goal of science and policy, especially in a country like India. Right? You will agree with me? That, or are we going to say poverty reduction is some economic department that will do? My job is, be focused on science. So I think this is where one is talking about the need for it. Okay, so this also brings us to the recently concluded COP28. Despite scientific advances and scientific evidences, the existence of solutions. Solutions are there. There are hundreds of excellent experiments done in India across all geoclimatic zones on how to solve a given problem. Now, why is it that we are not able to scale? So scaling up of these solutions is a challenge, and we tend to continue with business as usual. So we know that when we are reaching the 1.5 degree, threshold, what are we doing about it? Are we willing to do what needs to be done? I think these are important questions. So the nature of discussion, if you follow the nature of discussion that's happening in COP28, it's a very good example of science, policy, society interface. That what is it that we want to achieve? What is it that we are doing? Where are we falling short and why are we falling short? Yeah. So is it that the poor are expendable? It almost seems that poor are expendable and the earth also is sort of, we only have one planet, we only have one home. And that was what even the new video was saying, that there's only one home, which is, I think that is from David Attenborough's video. Okay, so we see that there is a divide between science and policy. We need to also recognize the fact that we tend to be linear. Why is collaboration difficult? It's because I don't want to let go of my boundaries. I don't want to learn from you. I'm the specialist, and what do I have to learn from social sciences? Yeah, so it's that kind of a thing. Can we fix this? Okay, so what is the science policy problematic? I don't know if you can read this. Here are two people who are saying that this mobile app will help you in mapping and monitoring the water points. And what are the women saying that will it carry also the water points? Their topic is also carrying the water. Do we have a mobile app? So, mobile app is what they are asking. What is the use of a mobile app? Their burden needs to be reduced, right? So, when we look at the interface between science and society, there is a lot going on there, and I think we need to get into the messy world of which is the real world, not like a sanitized version that we create because my study is this, these are the variables, this is what the findings are, and that's it. Do what you want with it. Send it out to the universe. Well, universe can pick it up, but no, you're not solving anything. Next, please. Okay, this is yet another issue that I was talking about. So here are two scientists. We need to do an independent research, says the boss. Here is the result desired by our funder. Okay, so much for independent research. You're already told that, well, this is the result we want, but this has to be an independent research. And it is the project proponent who is giving this, right? If the project proponent is asked to do an environment impact assessment, what is the project proponent going to do? He will hire an institution and say, here is the money, make sure that you are able to show with scientific evidence that this project is viable. This is how we are being bought and sold. So this is also a science and society problematic. In fact, for the Nicobar project, we've gone to court, and when I say we, I'm also an organizer. I'm on the board of a couple of organizations that work on issues of environment, and you have no choice left because the only thing that you see is that there is a flawed environmental impact assessment. The report is completely flawed. And that is being used to promote a project, to get project clearances. And those project clearances have come so rapidly that you know that somebody out there in Delhi is pushing the project really hard. Now, what do you do with that? Right? So this, unless we as scientists get involved, muddy our hands a little bit at least, or collaborate with entities that are involved in some of these issues, well, the world is going to really sort of accelerate towards the sixth mass extinction much faster than it was expected. So politics of funding, decision making versus what is the rightful place of science. So wherever you're located, I think these are questions we need to ask. What is the rightful place of science in larger scheme of things in society? Yeah, your allegiance is not just to your bosses, but also to so this is what is the linear model where we sort of look at physical events in a certain way. There was a human geographer called Kenneth Hewitt who had critiqued this linear model of looking at disasters and consequences. We need to look at the context. We need to look at culture. We need to look at history when they are looking at the consequences of the disaster. Next, please. So this is, I think, not working. Okay, we also want, so besides poverty and society and addressing vulnerability, we also want science for sustainability. If this planet is going to sustain, I think many of you would have, are you aware of the planetary boundaries? 9 planetary boundaries have been identified. This is excellent research being done by the Stockholm Research Center. Of the 9 planetary boundaries, we have reached 6 already. And that is like a very, very serious wake-up call. So beyond that threshold, our ability to recover is going to be very limited. So we have already breached 6, 3 are still in the green zone. And so that's the whole debate about trying to recover, trying to slow down, and make sure that we are within the acceptable boundary limits for ensuring sustainability. Okay. Okay, so what's going wrong and why are things the way they are? Okay, this is at some level it's very simple. What is it that we are usually doing? We are typically, our approach is to understand any system by cutting the big picture into smaller pieces, and these smaller pieces are the disciplinary blinkers that we employ. So why is it that someone working on oceans is not able to sort of work on say the Earth and the Earth's crust? Why is it that we are not working together? Some of the pieces lack detail, others are missing entirely. But next slide, please. Putting together this puzzle is a rigorous scientific enterprise. If we have to understand the world, the logic, the interrelationships, the interconnections, then we sort of really need to engage in a rigorous scientific enterprise. It's not going to happen automatically. So the question is, who is going to put that together? Without collaboration, which is a very important point, without integration, we will continue to work in silos. We will never understand what's going on. So this plea for integration and collaboration is an important one. Next, please. And each discipline brings something to understanding the problem, understanding the issue. But we need to understand that each one of us coming from diverse standpoints will look at the problem differently, will look at the reality differently. And so for instance, what is the research worth doing? What is good research? Who sets the agenda and why is it good? I think you ask the community, they'll say something else. You ask your boss, your senior scientist, he'll say something else or she'll say something else. You ask the policymaker, they will say something else. So I think this whole question needs to be understood in its perspective, recognizing that there are diverse perspectives. It's not that there is only one perspective. And that's something we need to understand, or at least be aware of. Because if you're not aware, you will continue to sort of wear your blinkers at all times. It's often said that where you stand on an issue depends on where you sit. Next, please. Yeah, so what is needed is systemic and integrative approaches to adequately understand physical and social processes and their interdependencies. All of these, the physical and the social, are interdependent, interconnected. And action-oriented and applied approaches are absolute need of the hour. There was a time, maybe 40, 50 years ago, we used to talk about science for science's sake. We must have a curious mind. Yeah, this is something that we have often learned. But today, it's no longer valid because we are under serious threat of annihilation. We are not going to exist. The planet is not going to exist. I definitely feel that my grandchildren are going to see severe water shortages and so on. Why is it that we are all looking at life on Mars and so on? Because we feel that this planet is not going to be able to sustain the future generations. So we need to develop and implement context-sensitive and socially robust strategies in a sustainable way. So that's where the interface, because the topic that I'm addressing is the interface between science, policy, and society. Unfortunately, we have what is known as the pipeline approach to knowledge production, where we have a problem, we do research, we generate data, knowledge, and there is some amount of transfer. We adopt it on a small scale, we prove that this can be done, and then we expect that in due course, people will accept it. Without any effort, people will just automatically accept it, but it doesn't happen that way. So we need additional efforts for that. So linear models have informed science policy praxis, and these are ineffective, is the point. So there's lots of literature, there's a lot of articles written about how these linear models continue to dominate at public research institutions, global environmental assessments, by scientists operating in public debates. usually the approach to science policy is, very, very linear. Next, please. So what are the pitfalls? What are the problems? The problems really pertain to lack of multiple scales. When you do linear research, you say this is the scale at which I'm operating. It doesn't necessarily speak to multiple scales. And we need to recognize that reality out there operates at multiple scales. So you putting your sort of microscope on just one aspect is insufficient to understand the whole phenomenon. Okay? Combining physical and social aspects is a challenge. Producing knowledge collaboratively, we've been talking about it. Recognizing institutional structures and communicating science. Who can say what? Is a big question. You are too small an institution to talk about such big things. Yeah, it's often something that is told to. I was inquiring as to does your sort of marine group actually look at what's going to happen to sea level rise? Do you do modeling exercises? Or even a small geography, that 50 years, what would happen to, let's say, the coast around Trivandrum? Do we do such modeling studies? Is a question. But then I was told that no, we are more of a monitoring entity. We are not expected to do this. So I think these are also questions that we need to what is it that we need to do is appreciate context, identify needed knowledge, addressing users' needs, embracing epistemological pluralism, which means there are different ways of studying the same phenomena. Different scientific techniques, methods can be used. Appreciating management options, co-designing knowledge, appreciating cultural contexts, appreciating large-scale dynamics. Our ability to deal with large-scale dynamics is often limited. Okay, so this is another sort of visual that tells us that there is a causal link between land use changes and floods. This is known. And yet, we do not apply principles of urban planning. We do not, even if we are aware that we are creating risks, we feel it's fine. Somebody else will take care of it. So the issue of accountability is a big question when we are taking decisions. And we are often, as scientists, providing data, information, maybe models also, to help them make decisions that they want to. And this is what we are creating. So I think it's important for us to address some of these things, because as scientists, you will be hired by private institutions. Yeah, so where will your loyalties lie? So this is a visual of Pala in Kerala, flooded twice in 2018. Okay, Meenachal River. So, I mean, like I was saying, there are lots of examples we can give from all over. Chennai floods is another example. Next, please. Okay, I am not sure if you are aware of this, but this is a Council of Science, International Council of Science has identified 5 grand challenges in science, which pertain to forecasting, observing, confining, responding, and innovating. These are considered globally the big 5 challenges. And I think we need to sort of really look at where are we in all of this. How are we responding to some of these challenges? How is our work as an institution, as an individual, as a team leader, when you are heading a particular segment, how are we speaking to some of these grand challenges of science? Because we are a scientific institution. Next, please. Okay, so why is policy setting and implementation not based on the best available knowledge in each of the sciences? There's so much knowledge that is available. There is so much that there are so many theories. There's enough sort of data and knowledge that is available. So, question of science for profiteering or benefit of society. Scientists and policymakers and politicians do not speak the same language. I want to give you a simple example. I was once told by, I go to the Wildlife Institute of India, in Dehradun, and I'm on the selection committee of. So, the director there was telling me, this is some years ago, that he was trying to explain to the minister that, not the minister, to explain to the secretary, environment secretary, that there was a huge push to divide an ecologically protected area, and they wanted a road to be passed across it. So you are basically splitting. I mean, you're splitting the two eco-sensitive zones or the protected areas. And he was arguing that this should not be done because it's a contiguous area, and that contiguity is very critical for the survival of the forest itself and for the flora fauna in that area. And she's saying, but what is there? It is only these many kilometers. It's not such a big deal. And he said that how do I explain science to this secretary who obviously was not a well-versed scientist. So he said that, madam, you're wearing this beautiful necklace. If you cut off one bead, what will happen to the necklace? So that absolutely clicked. Okay. So she said, yeah, now I understand what you're saying. So sometimes as scientists, you have to speak the language of the policymaker. You understand? Are we trained to do it? Probably not, but I think we need to cultivate ourselves in that manner to convince policymakers in a language that they'll understand. I mean, it's a very sad story, but that's our reality. Okay, so what happens when policymakers don't like what science is telling them? And it's good to know that science is, they will say it's only one input. There are other inputs also. They'll say there are other compulsions, there are other things that we are looking at, like the geopolitics of South China Sea and the Great Nicobar Project. So they are willing to put aside all scientific evidence which go contrary to the decision of putting up this 75,000 crore project. Okay, ironically, the scientific voice has been absent from debates over major policy affecting society and the planet because, well, they affect our careers, they affect our promotions, and therefore there's a tendency to give the politicians what they want. And this is reality. I mean, I can tell you 40 years of work experience, all the others who are here, this is our reality. But the question is, if this is the reality, are we going to succumb? And I want really for all of us to be able to recognize at all times that you will have pressures, but you will also have the power to push back. It may have consequences, but should we use that power or should we not use that power? I think that's a question. So there are NGOs that go to court with scientific evidence. Yes, we've talked about it. Next, please. So therefore, there's a call for engagement with politics of knowledge production. What is the agenda of your knowledge production itself? Who's deciding? No, let's do some neutral work. Let's not go and work in areas which are politically contentious. There is some big politician whose land is at stake, so we will not study that area. Or should we say, no, let us go and study that area? Yeah, that's the question. So establish current knowledge and future risks. Well, future risks need to be established. Do we offer systematic assessments? So all of this requires interdisciplinarity, but science for policy making is not neutral. Yeah, so this is something we have to understand. We are always told science is neutral, but it's not necessarily so. Science for policy making, you will have to take into considerations many factors. So we also need to be careful about what is being peddled as science, because there's good science and there's bad science. I mean, we've sort of seen this with the Tehri Dam, which was built. There was a whole lobby from the ministry's side which said nothing will happen. And they produced lots of studies saying nothing will happen. And there was a whole lot of other people who have said, no, Tehri Dam, if it breaches, if it induces seismicity, that kind of water body, and if it breaches, you're going to have devastation. So yeah, I mean, you really have, you need to look into what methodologies are being followed, etc., etc. So good communication by scientists about processes, trends, limitations of their work. Uncertainty will always be there. Yeah, there's a whole area called uncertainty science, right? So in all sort of earth researches, you will have uncertainty, and it should not be used as an excuse for taking policy decisions. So the question of are we trained as trained to communicate? Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is probably stop. Can you just go over the slide, Janki? Go over it slowly, like just I'll stop speaking. So Go to the next slide. Okay, go to the next slide. So this is basically talking about process level challenges. Next slide, please. There are system level challenges where wisdom also plays an important role. Okay, so we need to look at data, information, knowledge, and then wisdom, which we often no one talks about. It's only seen in terms of power, position, and how old you are or how great you are. Wisdom is not just that. Okay, next please. And then you have policy and practice level challenges. If you look at the corner, there's a whole range of challenges that are related to understanding and application. Next, please. Okay, a whole range of barriers. Next, please. Okay, this is a slide which actually talks about how to overcome these barriers. But I think we are running short of time, so I will skip this slide or we can move ahead. Yeah, next please. So to effectively implement earth sciences, we need multiple types of expertise to increase our credibility. So if your science is to be credible, you do need multiple sort of types of expertise. We need also to ensure greater legitimacy, make sure that there is greater collaboration, and in order for your research to be relevant, it needs to be context sensitive. So the push is towards co-designing and co-producing knowledge together with researchers, policymakers, and community and, of practitioners. Next, please. Okay, next. Okay, these are some examples. You know, what we are talking about is not wholly new. And that's what I want to say that, you know, the science policy society interface has been debated, discussed. There's been a great push. Kerala is a great state because it was the KSSP was set up, I think, 1962, was it? And I don't even know if all you scientists are aware of what is KSSP, but I remember I used to send students to KSSP from our side to sort of look at how they were looking at science for society and ensuring that people were aware of scientific approaches and techniques and so on. This was essentially sort of, they were working on issues of, they still exist, and they work on all sorts of issues which are scientific in nature, but meant for people. The People Science Institute in Dehradun was set up by an ex-IIT graduate and doing wonderful work. He's recently sort of stepped down as director, and yeah, he came out of IIT Bombay, decided to quit his sort of high science career and set up this entire institute. Social science and humanities departments in IITs was a huge sort of, you know, movement forward in fostering sort of interdisciplinarity. And today it's compulsory for people doing engineering to take courses in from humanities. So this is the way in which things are moving and it's happening. So I think what I'm talking about is not just out there like something radically new, but I think more and more of us need to do this. I was mentioning that yes, we are sort of school with a GIS department, and we do interdisciplinary sort of work. The only issue is that it's extremely difficult for a social science institute to get funds from ministry, where we really, I mean, they speak a different language, we speak a different language, and so on. And I think we are being helped now to sort of look at how to establish and how to get funding for GIS labs in a social science institute, because our institution is also not geared to establishing laboratories. It doesn't have the wherewithal. Okay, but we do have a lab and we have some excellent faculty that are working on it. Okay, so recruiting scientists with social science backgrounds, Wildlife Institute has been doing this because they are being called to do EIAs by the government. To give an opinion on social impact assessments done by project proponent, they say, look at this and tell us whether it's valid. So they say, we don't have expertise, but now they have started recruiting experts, social science experts. Next, please. Yeah, I got this. I just came across this advertisement from a US university which is asking for um they seek candidates whose research, teaching, and service leverages social science methods, approaches for understanding and addressing complex societal and environmental challenges. PhD in environment science, human dimension, sociology, public policy, or other related fields is required. Applicants with a joint degree in expertise in environment law are also welcome. So this is happening. That's my point. Yeah. Next, please. Okay, so again, there are already a whole variety of science policy arrangements that are in place. We need to understand that our assumptions vary. Okay, next, please. Okay, so this disconnect exists and we need to bridge the gap. Next, please. Okay, so heat waves. We know everything there is to know about heat waves. We know that it is all happening because of limited tree cover. We know because we are building badly. Next. We also know what's going on with regard to monocropping, estates, uh, mining. So all of this, but who's taking these decisions? Next. We also know science is telling us disaster impacts are intersectoral, cultural, social, this quantifiable, some things are not quantifiable, all of this extensive research data, papers. Next. We know the connections between vulnerability, exposure, adaptive capacity, and how do we sort of increase the resilience to climate change. Next. All these complex models exist. We know the interrelationships, vulnerability, sensitivity. All of this is there. Next. And there is also the UN has been talking about this that we need a whole society approach in disaster management. Okay, this is like being really propagated by the UNISDR, which works on disaster risk reduction at a global level. Next. Okay, so what are the barriers and challenges? We have diverse concerns, we have competing goals, contradictory actions and practices. Something that one institution is doing, somebody else very often is undoing it. Politicization of science, uncertainties such as climate change, and not everything about climate change is known, and not everything is linear, and so on. But we need to understand this entire relationship, and I want to focus a little bit on values because I'm going to close with that. Next. Okay, so the practical and conceptual level challenges in integrating this knowledge, the whole body of knowledge that exists, how do we operationally sort of integrate it? So the important goal of disaster knowledge and research is to inform policy and decision making. Let's keep that as a focus when we are doing disaster research. Experts working at the interface face all sorts of challenges. One is how to identify source of disagreement over environmental issues or over ecological issues. There are disagreements because science is uncertain. Yeah. So then how do you communicate those uncertainties? How do you express limitations of knowledge? We are not very open about saying that, okay, these are the things which actually I have not considered. Right? So it's important for us to say that. Tackling controversial topics such as building on earthquake-prone zones. How are we going to even, you say, yes, there is a fault line, yes, this data exists of how many shocks we have. But after that, if the government wants to build, that's their problem. If they are going to take that position, then obviously business as usual will continue. So we need to create platforms to discuss problems that disaster experts encounter in interaction between knowledge, society, and policy. Next, please. And yeah, okay, so the gap between what we know, what policies are made, and how we act is what we need to bridge. So many things we know, but we don't want to act on it. And that is the push. So, okay, understand and appreciate the relationship between facts, data, and values. So, no one really teaches us what are the values that you will uphold in your science. Because we feel science is completely apolitical and value free. But I don't think that's completely true. So there needs to be something, so which is why you have a whole lot of debate on GM, on cloning. People who work in these areas, are there debates? How do we debate? How do we? So you would always say that, well, we produce something, after that what society does with it is their problem. Plastic is a good example. When we first produced plastic, we didn't think it would become such a huge problem. But it has become. And I'm 100% sure somebody would have thought that yes, it will become a problem, but nobody was listening. Next, please. Okay, so for science society interaction, communication is key, and I think we need to learn to communicate. And again, this is not a subject ever taught to scientists that, well, how do you communicate something in layman's language? Yeah, but we need some of those inputs, and which is why I'm all for ensuring that you recruit social scientists in your team in NCESS. Next. Okay, so these are some of the final words. Key to understanding legislative and policy making process lies in realizing that you will never truly understand it, but you can learn how to navigate through it. How do you sort of, you will never know who's thinking what and why. Now, so build a relationship of trust that is mutually beneficial. Benefits you, benefits the institution, benefits the policymaker. Don't be complacent. You have to talk to be heard. Communicate because words matter. Avoid jargon. We tend to use so much of jargon that nobody understands. So speak their language, not yours. Shorter can be better. Identify those who are likely to support your cause. There's always good bureaucrats. I firmly believe in this, that in any system, there are some wonderful people, and you need to identify them and say, okay, we are in it together, they understand what you're all about, they understand your agenda, and I think it's important to build those relationships. So work on it consciously. Identify those who are likely to support your standpoint, know when to talk and present facts and evidence, accessibility, visibility, and accountability matter. Some of the most effective scientists I find are those who are writing regularly in the newspaper. Yeah, CP is one of them. CP Rajendran writes very regularly on current affairs. Scientist. But yeah, I think it's like someone who's thinking and who's giving a critical perspective on what's going on. Next, please. So navigation may always not be straightforward. It's not like producing one summary and sending off one letter. Yeah, you might need to do very many things. So you need to have plan A, plan B, plan C, all of which may be sort of complicated. Next, please. So this is virtually the last slide. So strengthen strategic approaches to science policy interface, coordinate, encourage science. I mean, this is something that we need to definitely work on. Create networks between researchers and policymakers. Can we create those networks? Can we be participating in those networks? Offer capacity building for researchers in science policy engagement. Build capacities to read, write, communicate, facilitate dialogue between researchers, policymakers, and community. We regularly call bureaucrats for our functions, whether it is like this or we have a disaster week that we organize. We always invite people from NDMA and IDM to participate, so they understand what they are doing. It gives you an opportunity to interact with them. Create visibility for science policy, society engagement. When this happens, publicize it, talk about it. And today with social media, it's become much easier. Next, please. Yeah, so this is what the UNISDR talks about. It talks about innovation curve and how to create regenerative approaches. Next, please. All right. So my last word really is that only through strong linkages between science, policy, and society can knowledge societies be created where policy decision makers and citizens have the capacity and the power to choose the future we want to create for our planet and all its inhabitants, because we have only one planet to live on, only one home. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As a token of our appreciation and gratitude, we would like to present a memento and Ponada to our guests. As a symbol of our esteem and respect. I would like to request Dr. V. Nandakumar sir to kindly come forward and present the memento to our guest, Professor Janki Andharia.
Okay, so there's a little debate happening here about whether there should be question answer session or not. I'm available, but if you're all tired and sleepy from morning itself, the speed at which she sort of said, okay, memento being presented, no one had time to wait.
Camera.
It's a time for a discussion section. If anyone have any doubts, you can ask now.
Any questions, any thoughts? It doesn't have to be questions. If you have any reflections also, that is it doesn't have to be.
You talked about that drone in the Andaman Nicobar, they are going to first start. So how is there any better idea to take care of that geopolitical thing sort of China and all? And secondly, is there any alternative that the developed countries have already produced such carbon dioxide, or they produce large amount of waste and they put all those things in the third world countries, so-called Asian countries. So how do we tackle those things, and why should we compromise our development? Like India is developing, so such a case. So these two are okay.
You want to say something?
Very long answer.
We answer. We have an alternative. Sorry, I can use this now, right? Yeah. So. Hello. Okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. I think this is fine. That is fine. Okay. Is there an alternative? Now the question is, if you look at the project includes tourism. It includes a tourism project. It includes building a seaport. It also includes an airstrip, and there's a huge township that's going to come up. The question is, and there's a huge part of the Great Nicobar that's going to be cleared. So the amount of forest, and these are pristine forests. I don't know if you've been to any of these islands, because we have worked in Nicobar Islands after the tsunami. For 3 years we worked there. Pristine forests, and there are certain species which are only found on those islands. So the question is, why are we going to that place? Why not somewhere else? The issue isn't only geopolitics. If it's geopolitics, we need to get the armed forces on board to be able to say that are there better options? You can maybe buy 75,000 crores you're talking about, it will become double by the time we sort of implement it. You might find it easier to have one more aircraft carrier or one submarine or whatever to do surveillance work there. So for geopolitical presence, you don't need to destroy an island. So other alternatives, I'm not the expert, but I definitely think that there are alternatives which will cost probably the same or even less. And is the threat so severe that we need to do this? That's another question. So somewhere somebody needs to take a call on all of this. That why are we doing? And it is somebody's harebrained idea that we are going to create one Singapore there, and there is a whole lot. If you look at the literature, there's just claim making that we are going to make one Singapore. And those are, I mean, the islands, they go for almost 1,000 kilometers from the North Andaman to the Nicobar. And it's on a fault line. And it's also on a subduction zone. So, I mean, is this what you really want? Is a question. Now, is there an alternative? Is this the only thing to? I'm 200% sure that alternatives can be invited. If you ask, well, people, I mean, the government probably needs to create a series of meetings, discussions, and have workshops to say, are there alternatives, rather than push. Yeah? And it's being anchored by media. There's also something called the Island Development Authority, which operates there. With regard to the second question about why are we being left behind, I think that's actually the question which is also being discussed at COP28. That the developed countries have developed, the northern countries have developed using extractive strategies. Either they should fund our development so that our process is not the same if they want us to conserve. And I think this technology transfer is a major issue on the table, which is under discussion. So there are funds being created and so on and so forth. So I think we are trying to avoid this whole thing of destructive development. So are there other ways of conservation? Why should the burden, see the basic question that developing countries ask is, why should the burden of conservation only fall on our shoulders? I mean, is it that, well, yes, we have the forests and we have, so you can't say, okay, remain that way forever. Yeah. So then we are talking about coal. We are saying that, okay, provide fuel at a cheaper rate. Then we are talking about phasing out. And the phasing out of fuel, the fossil fuel, is a huge sort of debate because the world economy runs on it, literally. So that phasing out is a very, very contentious thing. And which is why, yes, I think in India we have a huge push towards solar and so on. There are some countries which are talking about nuclear as an alternative because it's clean. But the danger of nuclear energy is huge, like the Fukushima, the Japan earthquake show. So we have to be very careful about how and what we promote. Right? So I think very valid point. This is a very good question that should we stop development? No, I don't think we're saying stop development. We are saying development should be of sensitive kind. We can't say that this is cheap, so let's just do it. Yeah. I mean, you look at Kerala. Kerala has a very high per capita income. When with all its progressive policies, you have a serious problem in the state with waste disposal. Why aren't we able to fix it? Yeah, I mean, it's a serious problem, right? Locally, I mean, everywhere. This is a huge problem. So there are issues that we are aware of, and it's not just about technology. There are many factors at play. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments, anything that you want to share? Most welcome. It doesn't have to be a question. Did you get bored with my lecture? If you will not ask, I'll ask you questions.
Madam, if you go to this place where COP28 happened,
I mean, I'm going to read it here.
the people are going there. See, if you had gone 5 years back, the places where we could find good seas and all, changes to beautiful mansions, the sea is getting, reclined. So those aspects, how do you address? There's a focus happening there. When you address this fossil fuel issue, you have been working, telling that
Yeah.
this is.
In fact, if you see all the cartoons around COP28, they actually talk about this, that the whole economy in the Middle East runs on oil. And you're talking about phasing out oil. So is it really going to happen? And much debate was happening on that. Yeah. So I mean, it is a very, very contentious issue. But the truth is, the bottom line, which is what scientists are saying, is you can keep debating and discussing and all of this, but you reach this 1.5 degree threshold. We are finished. There's no turning back. And we don't seem to realize because it seems to be, we don't believe that it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. And I know a lot of younger generation today, because I teach at the master's level, PhD and all of that, young people who say, we don't want children because we know that this planet is, I mean, they're going to see all kinds of shortages. You're talking about heat, you're talking about water shortages and scarcity. I mean, I don't want to be an alarmist, but there's enough science that is telling us that there's going to be severe crisis at multiple levels. I went on a holiday to Iceland. That was one country I've never been. So and if you see the glacial melts there, and local people telling you that there was ice there, now it's melted. So yeah, I mean things are staring us in the face for sure. So if we keep doing this, I want to also cite an example of Florida. Florida is a place where you had a whole lot of bungalows along the coast. All the rich people bought bungalows, and there's a phenomenon called king tide. I think the marine people here might know about it. So the water is coming into the bungalows from below. So we have to give up all those. So people have moved inwards, and the prices here have dropped completely because I mean no one can live in those houses.
Talking two scale, one is human life scale. So all these issues are on human life scale, and we have a geological time scale. When carbon dioxide is high in Earth, then carbonate precipitation will be there. That's why we've got Cretaceous formations. Cretaceous limestone. All our cement factories are working based on the limestone from the Cretaceous formation. That's in geological time scale. When oxide is high in the atmosphere, oxide ores may form. In geology, there are different provinces out there. So when you talk about this human life scale, all these issues will come. Then again, get the human life scale factor. So you are Andaman. I'm also supporting the environment inclusive development, and everything should be within the realms of nature. That's true. But the thing is that if China is attacking and putting all the bombs and other things, so we cannot preserve the Andaman and other things. So the geopoliticals and all other things, there is meaning. So how to balance in the present world, there'll be some sort of mechanism. I strongly believe in environment inclusive development. I like it. But there are issues. That's why.
But I mean, you're right, absolutely right, that when you're a policymaker, that's the kind of decision you need to make. I totally agree with that. But I mean, in today's day and age, where you have all sorts of surveillance techniques, yeah, you don't need like physical presence. So by creating a township there, what is it that you're achieving is the question. Is this the best option? Let me put it that way. Is this the only option that is available to us? We have had naval, air force, and military bases all along the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. There is a very strong military presence. Even, I mean, long ago, partly because we believe that we have 240 nautical miles on both sides. That's our special economic zone. So oil or whatever you can draw from there. So we have been very possessive about the islands. So we are aware that those islands are important for us. But tomorrow China is not attacking. China's presence is making us nervous. Now the question is, I mean, I can talk a little bit because I've been involved with some of the defense studies guys in Delhi. The question is, while we are afraid, I mean, it's basically like a show of strength when they send one submarine there, and then we track it, then we chase it out. All this cat and mouse game happens. The issue is Nicobar township going to prevent that is a question. In fact, if there is no habitation, and they are less likely to bomb. But if you build a container terminal, then they will try to destroy. I mean,
my point is that in Palestine, the wars are many wars are going on. So within a few days, everything is
correct,
completely.
absolutely.
So only thing is, we have to equip also. Otherwise, it's very difficult in this changing world.
So that's what I'm trying to say. When you go into the nitty-gritties, you will find that there are alternatives. That's my point. That we don't need to do what we are doing. That's all. I mean, I'm not the best person to give those alternatives because I'm not an expert either on defense studies or geopolitics. But yeah. So, any comments? Anything else anybody wants to say?
Just want to add what you said. CESS, not NCESS, was very strong in what you said in your presentation. Whether you take river management or tribal management or coastal management, we did a lot of work at that time, integrating all the science available and reaching the people. We were in a committee where we wanted to have a holistic development approach for those areas. Both of us were in the Swaminathan committee. So these type of things were happening at that time. But unfortunately, or I don't know exactly, has to correct me, whether such a thing is happening now. So I think Dr. Rajivan said that it should happen. We should also reach the people. We should get involved in holistic development of the different sectors. So that should be a parallel work which, along with the basic fundamental research, what we do. So this should go hand in hand. This is there in the policy of NCESS. See, when myself and under the leadership of Dr. Goel, myself and the present secretary, we made that document. We made that document, policy document for NCESS. So there it is very clearly written. See, basic research you have to do on one side, and application research you have to do parallel. So I don't know whether the second one is happening. It should happen. Then I think whatever Janki said it will become visible. Thank you.
So the present thought is what you have said. Any type of work should translate to either societal or industrial application. This is the thought now. So even if it is happening or not happening, I think a streamlining will surely come. So that see, our problem with the NSS is we don't have a contribution to the country, contribution to the nation. What is your contribution to the nation? This is asked. So I think it is high time to evolve programs that addresses the problems of the nation as such, which is having a societal and other industrial applications. Thank you.
Yes, maybe you should have a special workshop or conference where you call people who are scientists from other similar institutions and also some of your key policymakers and call it is for agenda setting for research. You know, I mean, you can frame it a little differently and so on. So you say for the next 5 years or 10 years, what should be our research agenda? You know, if you bring in policymakers to co-design certain kinds of studies, then I think it might be a good way. And of course, all expertise will not be available within one institution, but call other more eminent institutions who are doing good work and do more collaborative work like that. So that may be a good way of, you know, working on it. Do you want to?
Yeah, few words, okay. Thank you. Okay, so thank you so for nice, very interesting talk and we have told many important aspects of why science and social science and policy should work together. Frankly speaking, it's not working together. We don't work together. And but things are changing. And we do science without worrying about the policy. I don't know. We most of us doing it only. I don't want to be there. And we write paper. We will do research just to write paper. And then followed up by promotions, campaigns.
things, etc. But we don't worry about what the society is thinking about us and what we can contribute to the society. Science can do wonderful things for the society. But we don't normally look beyond writing papers. But things are changing. For example, when I was secretary, I was in funding agency called Enron Forum, very renowned funding agency. I was a member of the security board. So there, if you really, when they fund a project, science project, they ensure that a social scientist is a part of the funding project. It should be a PA. Okay. And unless you involve a social scientist, the funding will not be provided. So things are even WMO when I am the board of the research board, member of the research board. In the research board now we have a couple of social scientists who will tell us what kind of research projects we need to be up. Things are changing in India. You must have heard about National Research Foundation, which is coming up in the government of India. There the emphasis is on social science. So we need to bring social science into our physical science so that whatever we do has a societal applications. And we should take up science where there are a lot of social applications in there. That can be only told by a social science. He only understands the societal problems. We don't understand. So that's the problem. So things are changing. We should hope that things will be far better in the future coming year. Second important aspect is communication. We don't scientists are not good communicators. We don't speak very well. And even if we know that very well, if somebody asks questions, we avoid. So we should go out and tell that this is a science, this is an application. Please use it. We don't normally tell, but that are
training for that. As part of what we should say.
Yeah, so that also is getting changed. They're also getting changed. So things are improving. So Pranamar has a good feedback.